Mike, how are we doing today?
Doing great, Frank. How are you?
Doing really well, man.
Oh, man, it feels great. We just had a wonderful Thanksgiving weekend, and now back here in the hot seat.
In the hot seat, yeah.
I love it. Did you have a good Thanksgiving?
I did, yeah. We went to my sister-in-law, Christine's house, and the whole family showed up. Very nice.
That's awesome.
I enjoy this time of year.
Yeah, me too.
I enjoy every time of year, but
the weather is great. People are in a good mood. It's Monday today, so people are just getting shaken off the holiday blues.
Yeah, and it is true. It's funny because there is this like anxiousness that is surrounding the holidays, and I used to experience this years ago. I don't anymore, but it's like hurry up to get there.
Yep.
And hurry up to get the prize or whatever it is. And it's this weird anxiousness.
And then it ends like this.
Yeah,
so quick.
Yeah, and they're like, why can't every day be like Christmas? I'm like, because you would die if you don't get rid of the anxiety. And if you get rid of the anxiety, actually every day is like Christmas, so to speak, you know?
That's exactly
Or any other peaceful holiday in which we come together and meet where nothing else is pulling at us other than the holiday. But
we get these brief moments during the holiday where nothing's pulling at us. It feels great, you know, and it's those little quick moments of just like peace where you're not focused on anything. There's nothing pulling at you, and there's this space, and you're like, ah.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it has to do with there is this collective consciousness doing it. So
absolutely, the hive mind.
Yeah, and if you fall into that like excitement, it amplifies. But if you don't, if you're kind of like Ebenezer at the beginning of a Christmas Carol, it's painful. And so yeah, but yeah, I think that will be the topic of today. Talking about is love and fear.
I love it.
Right, and we look at some people look at them as opposites. My perspective is it's different degrees. Like there is only love, but then there's certain degrees of love that where, depending where we are in a journey, that you can't function in, and that's what we call fear. In other words, there's no such thing as absolute darkness. Mm-hmm. But from the human physical body, I need a certain amount of light to read a book, right, or to do operations-wise. So
we collectively, I feel like we misunderstand or mislabel fear too. Yeah,
but I think we do to some extent, because I look at it this way: if there's no such thing as absolute darkness, like there's some light somewhere, energy somewhere, there's no such thing as absolute fear. Mm-hmm. So then fear becomes some illusion, but yet the illusion is experienced, you know, through the pain body. It's real. It's real. So we're going to tackle that today. We're going to define what love is. We're going to define what fear is. And then we're going to show our perspectives, like Mike has his, I have mine, how to mitigate and move into what we call the higher realms of the energy called love, which it's all love, because love is like the screen allowing the movie to play. Without the screen, there would be no movie. Yeah. There'd be no movie to reflect upon. So that's how I look at love. Love is all there is. And that's why, you know, before we get started, well, we actually started. What am I talking about? Before we get started. I like when people say, before we get started. Yeah, but you already started. It's too late before you get started.
Just got to dive right into it.
Just got to dive right into it. Yeah, I forgot my train of thought. My God.
No, we're totally good. I think when we're talking about like love and fear too, fear is absolutely like an absence of love. Love is...
it's a masking over. It's kind of, yeah, because when you're in a state of love, nothing needs to be done. But in fear, there's a lot of work to be done. Like you have to imagine something bad happened to get in the fear. So it's kind of the ultimate letting go. And we're going to walk through that today. We're going to take you from, you know, where, say, you know, according to studies where most people are, to move in a direction where you see some of these light masters lived. Mm-hmm. And there's no really right or wrong here. It's just, it's a journey. Because even the masters that lived there probably had multiple lifetimes where they didn't. Why? Because would they have the wisdom of understanding stress or fear if they never experienced it? Mm-mm. So these masters had to have done that. So I believe, you know, my journey is moving into that realm, but not discarding these other states. Because once I do that, I fall back into that murky water called fear. right? So, but I know they're all available to me. But if I'm just going to look in the direction which I want to go, and if I'm looking towards love, so to speak, fear is at my back.
Yeah.
But yet that keeps me alive.
There's like this realization too that that you once you begin to move into fear, it gets easier because you start to see fear for what it is.
Yeah.
You know?
And what is it?
An illusion.
Yeah, it is an illusion.
The appearance of lack, the stress, the worry, the anxiety that comes with not knowing. It's like it can be paralyzing at times.
Yeah.
Like I remember feeling fear, throughout my life, and it would be debilitating at some points. Like just getting out of bed would be difficult, or going into a certain situation would be hard. You're just trying to get through the day.
And like what force was there that was very difficult to get out of bed? That's the question you have to ask yourself. Like why was it difficult to get out of bed? Was there extra gravity that day? were there a lot of people in your house like holding you down, tying you up?
For me personally, I realized it was a series of thought patterns. It was mental patterns of, the same type of thoughts about what if this happens? I'm not here yet. Am I ever going to be able to accomplish this? I know I'm worth more. All sorts of mental patterns. And for me, that's how I was able to kind of break through fear, was to see fear as the mental mind pattern, the self-talk that that was an old version of me, something separate from myself, my true self, my higher self. That's how I was able to walk into fear.
And what were some of the things
with a sense of love?
Yeah, what were some of the thoughts that came in that were actually generating this fear? It wasn't like, oh, I won $1 million.
No, totally. Yeah. It was more thoughts of lack of self-worth. That was a big one. It's like lack of self-worth, thinking that there's somewhere else that I should be. Like I should be, but at this point I should have this by at this time. A lot of such a sense of lack. There was an abundance of lack.
You're like a very abundant person.
Yeah, well, we all are, and we just don't know that we're experiencing abundance of lack.
Yeah.
And when you start, when the shift happens, when you start to have a different perspective and you realize, oh, I just have a lot of mental patterns of fear, of, lack of self-worth, of lack in general, then you can kind of get into the hard drive and begin to reprogram, if you will.
Yeah, or actually step out of the program completely. So let's just quickly go in. I'm going to define how I look at love. Like love is all there is. Like I said earlier, love is like the screen to the movie. Without the screen, the movie wouldn't have anything to reflect back onto us. Because what is the movie? It's nothing but a modulation of pixels of light, and it looks like movement, but there's really nothing moving. Well, it's an illusionary thing, but the experience of watching a movie is absolutely real to the human body and how we tie our emotions into it, right? So there's something going on there, but the illusion is we don't know what it really is. But the screen allows the illusion to continue. So love allows the illusion of fear to continue. So then what is fear? Fear is a pattern recognition of something that's breaking down, what we call negative energy. It's interference, all right? And we're all equipped with know what's interference and what knows what's collaboration or collaborative, things that expand and grow. So we step into a pattern that isn't operating. We get stuck in it, kind of like a revolving door.
A loop.
Yeah, get into a loop. And it doesn't matter, like I mentioned this earlier to Mike, but it doesn't matter if the revolving door is laced with gold and diamonds and one is laced, with corroded with rust. A revolving door is a revolving door. And the reason I brought up the gold revolving door with the diamonds opposed to the rusted one, people in the outside world with a lot of money still get caught up in this revolving door of fear. Okay, maybe the fear of going broke isn't on them, but the fear of dying is. Mm-hmm. How much money, do I need? And it's funny because I was listening to this guy. He's a very successful business person. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to mention his name, But I was listening to him on a podcast, and he was talking about, you have to keep making more money because you don't know one day you'll get cancer and you have to fly to some place that does this operation, but you don't do that. I'm like, to what point?
That's a crazy story that he's got pumping through his head.
It is. It's like, because most people just think of themselves when they're making money. I'm like, well, if you're making money and think of yourself, I could see that problematic. But like, at what point do you not have enough money to find even a cure for cancer? I'm like, because a lot of wealthy people die of diseases and they had all the money in the world. So it's a weird excuse for multiplying more money. Mm-hmm. All right. But again, it was a short part of the interview. I was listening to it, so I don't want to blank. That's why I didn't mention his name. Blanking, this is how he thinks completely. All right. But still, again, that's a revolving door that's gold plated and solid gold.
Limited belief.
But it's still going around. You're getting nowhere in that setting. So you could run as fast as you can in a revolving door. You're just going to get dizzier. So understanding what negative or what fear is. Fear is a place where humans need a certain, just like I need a certain amount of light to see physically. We need a certain amount of frequency energy in order to experience the love. We need a really good screen in order to watch the movie that we're presenting. So fear then becomes an illusion because there's really no such thing as fear. And what I mean is, I'm like, there are people that don't have sight but can function very well in the world, and they don't see light the way you and I do. Mm-hmm. And they're not depressed. All right. So everyone's trying to avoid a certain amount of dimness or darkness where I'm like, why? I'm like, fear isn't in the dark. It's not investigating it that creates fear. Mm-hmm. Being broke isn't part of fear. It's trying to avoid being broke, so to speak, because there's lessons to be learned. So what I'm saying is you could take love into any corner of your soul or the universe, and it will always be there. It's not wanting to go there that generates this thing called fear. So, that's what people what they call brave people. They're willing to go to places that other people won't. I'm trying to stay away from that. I'm like, why? That's where you learn about yourself.
Putting attention on it.
Yeah, so fear is this illusion keeping you from diving and investigating why you actually came here in the first place. And love is so strong that fear is this most amazing thing when you step into something, the unknown, and other people talked about it like you should never go there. It's the Deadlands. You should never be alone. It's the Deadlands. And then oh, fuck it. Let me go alone and sit by myself and see what I discover. Mm-hmm. I'm willing to give up what I deem to be temporary pleasure to go into this place. And I'm like, this is not fucking bad.
Well, I think
this is actually good. My wife's out of the house. I'm by myself.
Gotta cut some peace and quiet.
Honey, I'm home. Oh, fucking hell. I'm in hell. No, I was kidding. Just sorry, Karen. I'm just joking. But it's willing to go in. Okay, what am I fear of? Face that and head into it. And you bust it open. It's like turning on a flashlight in a dark room. Mm-hmm. It illuminates the room, baby. Mm-hmm. It really does. There's no need to be scared. You are a flashlight, by the way.
I think everybody listening to this right now can think of a time in their life when they, against all odds, or worked up their courage to do something they were afraid of, something they were scared of, something they had a lot of fear behind. And on the other side of that was a breakthrough for them. Yeah. And it was like the skies parted and the light came in, and it's because we walked into that fear rather than hid from it or tried to avoid it, or like you're talking about, put tension on it by simply recognizing something and pushing it away rather than hitting it head on. And if we know this, if we know we've all had experiences like this, then why are we not moving into fear? And it comes back to the emotions that are tied to it. These feelings come up, these emotions come up, and we're like, we freeze up, we don't like it. There's a lot of unknown. So for me, it was a lot of recognizing that feeling and going, yeah, I'm uncomfortable. Yes, this is an uncomfortable feeling, but I know what this feeling is. And now what do? I fall back into love. I move into the fear, and that's how you level up.
Yeah, because after a while, like, is it really uncomfortable? Or it's the fighting that creates discomfort?
The mental anguish.
What creates discomfort is a revolving door. You're going to get dizzy. It's a pattern recognition. Like, okay, I'm not getting anywhere, but I'm moving. But you're not getting anywhere. You haven't, it's kind of like, remember, holiday vacation?
Oh, yeah, Groundhog's Day or whatever?
No, National Lampoon's European Vacation, when he got stuck. Big Ben, Parliament, and he got stuck in the middle. So then by the end of the day, it's like, I don't know how long they were in there for, but the period of time elapsed. So it's a pretty long time where everyone's like trying to like get the hell out of here. Yeah, they've been driving for like, I don't know, like the period of time, say 4 hours, but they were still in the same spot. Parliament. And in the beginning, it was like, hey, look, Parliament. Hey, look, there's Big Ben. And it's like, Parliament, Big Ben. It's trying to replicate something and looking at it with fresh eyes, but you can't because you're trying to anticipate what should be seen. So people get comfortable in the revolving door because they're comfortable with what they see, but over time that diminishes. It's like it's a law. It's like the law of diminishing results or something like that. I'm not saying it properly, but if I try to physically set something up to do something every day in accordance to organize it, like plan it, it has a great diminishment of anything. So if I, like, in other words, the first time I ever had a massage, it was probably great. The second time, it started diminishing if I go with the expectation of how it felt the first time. Mm-hmm. So there is a way to transcend that, by the way, but I'm just saying for the everyday person. So if you keep moving and try to get pleasure, the diminishing of output of how much time and how much pleasure you get diminishes over time. But the one thing that doesn't diminish is stepping into the unknown, which is uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. There's always great gratification from that, always. So, and like because everything really is unknown. And when you do that and you trust the universe, that's a loving place to do, to set in. I'm going to move forward into this detour that life is sending me, and I'm going to do it willingly. Yeah. The nervousness of it keeps me alert. So instead of being nervous, I'm alert, right? Anxious, instead of being anxious, I'm excited. So you can take anxiousness and excitement, the same energy, but the filtration, the definition I give it is what matters. That's where the free will comes, by the way. Absolutely. My ability to say, perspective, I'm anxious or I'm excited is up to me, right? So, okay, when I go into anxious, I'm going to continue to experience anxious till I go from anxious to excited. All right. But the nervousness is like, it's alertness. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now I'm redefining what that is. And I'm redefining what the dark is. The dark is like the solitude, a place where I want to really go deep into. I want to explore. That's where the hidden treasures are buried, right? Hidden treasures aren't out in the open. They're buried. And that's where I want to go. I want to go deep inside and see what I find. And then come to the surface to share it with the world and go back and forth. You become like your own miner, where you're not fracking the earth, though.
Yeah, exactly.
People are scared. Maybe they'll go down there and the tunnel will collapse or the mine will collapse. I'm like, no, when it collapses, it won't crush you. Yeah, that's the beautiful part. It's not like timber and rock and dirt falling on you and there's no oxygen left. Quite the opposite.
Yeah, this is an internal experience.
Yeah, exactly. So get back to mining.
It's funny because we learn to become this alchemist, right? Where we take this, take this lead and turn it into gold. We take this feeling of angst, anxiety, and we turn it into excitement. But this will continue to come up in different ways. And as these feelings come up, we get better and better at it because we're aware of what's going on. And I think that's what I really want to highlight to people is you have to develop this awareness to the experience that you're calling your reality. Once you have a level of awareness of the experience and what these feelings are, when you felt these feelings before, what you did, to transcend these feelings in the past, from there, now you have, now it's kind of like being at the top of the mountain and being able to see from above. Yeah, you are going into this armed with if you will, armed with experience, knowledge, wisdom, and that that right there is love. That is the knowing that I can get through this. And from there, you've changed the entire script, because before it was, how am I going to get through this? Where when it just a flip of the switch, I know I'll get through this. That has now set the stage for a whole new scene to play out.
Yeah, as if you wouldn't be supported in your role. Just like an actor gets a script and they get signed on for the movie and they show up at the set. Everything they need, from the wardrobe to the idea of money and where they live in a car, whatever it is all presented to them. They don't have to bring it with them. So what role of character are you playing, right? So you're playing the broke-ass homeless person. Well, guess what? You're going to have holes in your shoes and living on the street. And again, you could still win the Academy Award for that. But is that why you came here? Yeah. Or did you come here to go from this place of no experience and step forth into this immense experience? Say you live to 100 years old, you have 100 years of experience. And at some point in it, can you look at every experience as equal value as the idea of love? That's the journey I found myself on. Like the death of a loved one to the birth of my child. Like, yeah, they're different. Just like going to a funeral is different than Disneyland. I'm not here to try to make everything, the color blue. That's just weird. We can't. But in the physical world, but can I maintain and be seated to from the place where I'm experiencing it? The one who's experiencing the death, the one who's experiencing the birth. And then look at it, and as I sit back in that, there's no judgment. Yeah. You're going to go through emotions such as sadness, crying, but you're going to learn something from it, right? And I think that's the thing that happens. Like I was listening to a study, and I found it very interesting that I might have mentioned before, but that 1% of everyone's life is going to be tragic. And what I mean is there's nothing you can do to avoid it. I don't give a shit how much money you make. It's going to be tragic. But they said that, according to a study, that 95% of our time we're actually worrying about what tragedy may happen. And a lot of times it's not the tragedy you think. It may come. You might correlate that, right? But it might not happen. So that only leaves us with 4% of peaceful time in our mind. So the journey I look at is, how do we go from the 95% to 90%, and then 90 to 75? And as you start to let go of worrying and fear, worrying about something that may happen, and just like something's going to happen, I guarantee it. Every day I wake up, something happens.
That's for sure.
It does. And you can't know when those, what we call tragedies, is going to happen. They just do. But when you wake up every day and you're not experiencing what we call that tragedy, but you step into the unknown willingly, when the tragedy happens, you're better equipped. And what I mean is, a Navy SEAL is training, so when they do get dropped off in some foreign land with maybe 5 of their buddies with a couple of weapons, quiet, and the guy's like, hey, if you get caught, we don't know you were here. All right. So they're training their whole life to maintain that, but it's not till they get there they're going to know how well the training is. But yet, if they never trained,
good luck.
They would they would probably bury themselves in a hole and like, hey, we got a mission here. It's like, no, I freeze up. So instead of waiting for that tragedy to happen, what can you do to exercise? And okay, what can I do to, okay, I'm scared of the dark. Well, step into the dark. That's how you train yourself. And then ask yourself, why am I scared of the dark? What can happen? We start asking that question. And then go in the dark for like a second and turn the lights on. And turn them off. Turn them off for 2 seconds. What you're doing is you're getting your body used to the unknown. And that's all you're scared about, is the unknown. But guess what? The unknown is all there is. You know, what's today's date?
Today's the 2nd.
The 2nd. Now, when this comes out, it won't be the 2nd, but you'll get the point. It's the 2nd of December. 2024. Me and Mike have never been here before, ever.
Ever.
And nor anyone listening, even if you're going to listen to this at some later date. So it's unknown. It's unknown, you know?
We don't know what could happen today.
We don't. No, I don't have to relearn the English language ever. Well, sounds like I do. Every day, but I can go into the unknown and find different words to explain what I'm talking about. I can refine how I speak, right? Mm-hmm. But I don't have to relearn it in a sense. I'm starting off, but there's always things to develop on it. And as long as I'm not scared of learning more, it becomes tremendously exciting. And there's love behind it. And yeah, things are kind of come up. They always do. And I'm better equipped at it. Doesn't mean I'm going to be like, okay, someone died. Okay, want to go see a movie? Mm-hmm. No. Now I can convert that sadness into great compassion. It's a conversion, like Mike said earlier about being the alchemist. So once I know how to make lead into gold, give me all the lead you got, baby. All right? But in this case, lead is given to you. What are you going to do with it? Are you going to carry it around and see no worth in it? Now it's just holding you back. Why bother? Or look at the gold. I'm like, wow.
And I feel like a lot of us do that so we all have our own stories. We do. And we call them our experience. We call them who we are, with what we identify with, etc. So we run around with these crazy stories about, from childhood, and this is the way I am, I'm introverted. I'm, not where I want to be, or I'm not this, I'm not that. We have all these ideas of what we are, and we state them. And we live our lives by it. We actually defend it. Oh, I can't do that because of this. This happened to me when I was a kid. So, this has scarred me for life. And so we carry these stories. And it's these stories that are what are ultimately holding us back.
That's the revolving door.
Yeah, that's the revolving door. So when the awareness clicks, when it goes, oh, I have been doing this. From there, now you know what the revolving door is. You've identified, oh, wow, my mind comes up with these, crazy ideas, stories, self-talk, and it's dictating and running my life. So you develop this sense of awareness. Now, when you have this awareness and these things come up, now you go, oh, I know what this is. I remember this mental pattern. This has happened to me my whole life. I am not going to participate. I am changing. I am drawing a line in the sand, and I am changing from here. And this is where you become the alchemist. You take what was normally considered lead, and you say, hey, I'm going to move through this. I'm going to use this experience to my advantage. And it's at this point when you start to walk towards fear or go into a situation you would normally never find yourself in or deem uncomfortable. And it turns out to be just the most amazing experience. Or, oh my God, if I never, if I wouldn't have done that, I would have never seen how great this could have been. And that's the gold. And so it's a level of an awareness that allows for you to tune into this, experience, but you need to have that awareness in order to, become that alchemist.
Okay, now let's the part of the show where we talk about the practical ways of getting there. So everyone that became an alchemist was an apprentice of a more senior alchemist. So what is the apprenticeship here? Like, what does that look like? Because we all, like, when I used to hear this stuff years ago, I'm like, yeah, it sounds great. Okay, but I'm here. How do I get there? Mm-hmm. And like clicking my heels like Dorothy did not work, although it works now, and I'll explain. It's starting with the concept of going into the unknown, and in the beginning, the unknown deems to be uncomfortable, but that's okay. So me and Mike have been doing a tremendous amount of series on breathing, and I'm going to continue this, but if you get into a breathwork situation or breathwork regiment and followed by a meditation regiment, what you'll do is you'll notice that what is fear? Fear is a negative pattern, an interference pattern of your nervous system. That is the experience of fear. It's all it is. Like, what do you mean? Something happened outside of you. You had a definition it shouldn't have happened. And all of a sudden, it's like your higher self is saying, wrong answer. And then it gives you your nervous system a shock. And you don't like that. So you're trying to avoid it. But the higher self is just saying, hey, there's a fire in the house. This is just an alarm. Where you're running around trying to find the alarm where most people are trying to put the fire out. Or you see what I'm saying? So the alarm is there. So the nervousness, or what we call fear, is a feeling to say, hey, why are you running? Step into it. Mm-hmm. Grab the fire extinguisher and put that damn thing out, because it's not that big at all. So when we start to do breath work and breathe in.
And when you say not that big, it's like, not only can you handle this, you can handle so much more.
Yeah. Because even every great fire, even if you stood back and watched, would put itself out. Mm-hmm. It always does. A fire doesn't burn continuously. So, but when we get really good at this, you see a little fire in a trash can, you put it out, and you don't even fear that the house was even going to burn down. Then you get to a point where you're always going there to where a fire doesn't even start in the place of being unsafe. But nonetheless, you're not scared of a fire starting because you're good at putting out fires. So when we start to do breath work, in the beginning, it's going to seem to be uncomfortable, just like going to the gym. And when you go to the gym and work out, it is a form of breath work. All right. Now, the excuse of people going to the gym, my back hurts, my ankle hurts, whatever. I'm like, well, right now you have no excuse. All right. Now, what happens whenever I do breath work, I fall quickly into the state. That's the clicking of the heels I'm about to talk about. But in the beginning, I wasn't. It took me 20 minutes and several times a day to get to that place. Where over time of doing the breath work, I'll show you the second you can do, you drop in automatically. So all of a sudden, I'm doing, people like, okay, I do 20 minutes of breath work and an hour or 20 minutes of meditation. I'm like, I do breath work all day long and I meditate all day long. I notice when I fall out of meditation, when frustration kicks in. And what's frustration? It's an augmentation of my breathing that's interfering because my vagus nerve isn't acting properly. I stepped out of parasympathetic state. Now I'm into sympathetic state. That to me is the alarm. It's like, I'm not worried about the alarm. If I put the fire out, the alarm will go off, right? So now I'm like trying to pull the battery out of the alarm. I'm like, yeah, but there's still a fire. I'm like, you don't want to do that. And guess what? You can't pull the damn battery out. That's not how it works. I guess you could. Drinking, taking drugs. Mm-hmm.
These are all ways we
are. Yeah, actually, it's like putting earplugs in. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm going back to sleep. I'm like, the alarm was on for a reason. Now you're going to be a hot dog, get charred in the morning because you put headphones on. So, again, step into it and look at why the alarm is going off. So when I feel bad in my body, it's an alarm stating you're actually thinking improperly. Well, maybe thinking itself is improper, right? But you're moving in a direction away from where you were designed to head. And you're like, oh, but this happened. I'm like, that's mere distraction. So when we get distracted, we're missing the mark. Missing the mark in religion, it's called sin. So, okay, who cares that you missed the mark? The next time you're not going to. So don't beat yourself up for missing the mark. You simply got distracted. So when we get to the point where you set aside 5 minutes and then 10 minutes and 20 minutes, and we get to a point where you're meditating for an hour, then we'll get to a point where you're meditating all day long. And what I mean is you're no longer setting time aside. You wake up in your meditative state while you're taking a shower. You're in a meditative state while you're driving to work. You're in a meditative state while there's a candle lit with nice music in the background, sitting in lotus position. So different experiences within the state of meditation. And then when you're meditating, what you're doing, you're controlling your nervous system by breathing. So what typically precedes early on is the breathing, then meditation state. When you get to a point where you're clicking the heels, you're meditating and breathing now. It all comes that way. So it doesn't matter where you are. If you need the 2-hour meditation, fine, do it. That's great. I used to be there. You know, there are days I go there willingly because I'm like, let's see what happens. Again, that's going to the unknown. There's still parts of my inner psyche, shadows in there that still need to be exposed by light, you know. And so, hey, what am I doing today? I got nothing going. I'm going to sit here and go. I'm going to go down this hole and see where it takes me. you know?
Go within.
Yeah, as long as I make sure I get all the stuff on the list that my wife wanted by the end of the day. Because, you know, like, why'd you get anything done? I'm like, oh, I went deep into my soul. She's like, I don't give about your soul. I'm like, what about
what are we cooking for dinner tonight?
Eggs.
Sorry, babe. I love how you just walked us through that, though, Frank, because like that is that level of awareness that what we're talking about here. You know, it's like, okay, you know, I see what's happening here. I see what's ticking, and it's like I watched your version of being of your awareness, which is, hey, my breathing has been augmented.
Yeah.
You know, I know what this means. Most people would say, oh my God, I'm so stressed, I'm so anxious.
They try to get rid of the situation.
Yeah.
They try to get rid of the alarm. Mm-hmm. And there's ways to do that, like drinking, taking drugs, distract yourself with TikTok and whatever.
All sorts of
stuff. And again, going back to it, TikTok isn't the problem if you're utilizing it to learn some new experience, right?
Correct.
But if you're doing it because you're trying to distract yourself, the fire is still burning around you. Mm-hmm. You know, it's something you have to deal with.
And this at its core is like what is so important, because we're living in a society that says, okay, we must now ban TikTok. You know, that's just me giving an example. You know, it never comes back to the individual or how we use something. Like, what's his name? Who's the famous Shakespeare? You know, Nothing is good or bad. It is the mind that makes it so. You know, it is thinking that makes it so.
Now, at a certain level, maybe, you know.
But we're out here trying to ban everything and say, nope.
Yeah, and maybe at some level, like, again, looking at this whole spectrum, I don't look at anything as good or bad, but maybe at some level, getting rid of TikTok would be a good thing. Why? Because if people realize they can survive without it, then you can reintroduce it, right? So it's kind of like when we were children, we didn't have run of what food we ate. If we did, it would have been, you know, it would have been pudding all day long for me, you know? So, but then the restriction of it allowed me to realize I don't need that anymore. Matter of fact, when I have it once in a while, it has a better feeling on. Now I'm at a point where now I'm like, no, that sugar is creating a weakness of the parasites that I want to get rid of in my system. I'm like, oh, so I don't even enjoy sugar anymore. I'm like, oh, you gotta have fun. I'm like, I don't enjoy it. It was a distraction when I was younger. Now it's like, I don't want to be distracted. When I woke up, I'm like, how beautiful this world is. And stepping into a cave is the most beautiful thing in the world. And then coming out into light, creating that experience in the contrastal aspects. Like, this is brilliant. Why would I want to mask that? Why would I want to go from here down to here? All right. And
the only reason we mask it is because we're unaware of it.
But at the same time, I'm not pronouncing I'm not denouncing anything. All right? I'm not saying don't do this or do that. It's just that why would I? And that's the place where we really want to get to. We get to a place where you wouldn't consider doing that. But why wouldn't you consider doing that? Because you've been there. And then you've been there, done that. Oh, new revolving door. And then eventually you get out of revolving door and you get onto the what's that? Escalator, or because you're elevating up. I like that. Elevator. But the conveyor belt. That's what I was thinking about. Like, I love that at the airport. Yeah, people just
go for about 10, 15 feet.
Right? It's like, so now you don't have to. But yet it's moving you continuously. You're not going in a circle. Mm-hmm. You're just moving in a direct forward manner.
Yeah.
Which direct forward manner, this means, everyone lived to 100 years old, everyone would have the same amount of experiences. But the revolving door, it's the same amount of the same damn experience. You know what I'm saying? So it's not gain there, but then the conveyor belt is more or different amounts, right? If I only ate apples, I'm still going to eat. Like, say everyone ate a certain amount of calories every day, but I took mine from apples. Mm-hmm. Well, I only have an apple experience of caloric intake, where it seems to be most of us need variety in order to not go insane, right?
Meat, vegetables.
So the revolving door will essentially make you insane,
And that is... what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result.
Yeah, like Big Ben, Parliament.
Exactly.
It's like, oh, wow.
And as a society, we are legitimately, by definition, insane.
Because we're trying to create this box that we want to stay in. And then, like, every year we put an extension on the house. And I'm like, no. Mm-hmm. I'm like, become a nomad. Now, I don't mean literally. I'm like, there's nothing wrong with having a house and all that stuff. It's how we look at it. Because if you could live in some small town in Kansas, and live to 100 years old, and you can wake up every day and revisit your house and revisit the land you live on and see it completely different. Where you could also be traveling the world every day for the rest of your life and still not find anything. So it's perspective. It's not the actual, although the actual thing correlates with it. But if I woke up every day and saw something new, I don't need to actually leave my house. I'm just looking at my house completely different. Now, for humans, it's easier to step out of your house, look at stuff different. So I get that paradigm where we are with the physical world. So having different type of experiences make everything else more delightful. If there was only blue, would we really know what blue was? But that's the experience we're having. But who we really are already knows everything is just a fleeting experience.
Well, that's why we have the contrast we do. I know we call fear as something like we don't like or we don't enjoy or whatever. But without fear, we would never truly appreciate, understand, and really experience love.
Yeah, so fear then, in that case, becomes a different degree of love. All right? Okay, let's see how long I could hold my breath. All right? It's kind of a challenge. Let's see how deep I could go into fear, before I die. And you realize you'll never die. Yes, the human body in which we live, and I hear all these different things coming out, so I don't know which is true or not, but I'll go with this one I heard years ago, that every 7 years, according to certain biologists, you have a completely new body. So, okay, from 7 years ago, so I'm 57, so when I was 50 years old, where is that 50-year-old body? If I pulled a picture up, I definitely look different, But yet there's something that's in me now that was in me at 50 that never changed. It's not till I looked at the photo of 50 years old do I notice that, my hair looks different.
It's
I have
changed.
another wrinkle on my forehead and whatever it is. All of a sudden I realized, but the witnesser, the thing, what we call the I am, was always there and always will be there. Just like electricity doesn't disappear because my technology broke down. Yeah, the function of the technology doesn't allow the electricity to create the function, but the electricity doesn't disappear because my laptop broke. So laptop, but everything that's on my laptop, cool thing about it was telling, like my phone, say my phone broke, right? I couldn't charge anymore. I go to my provider and they give me a new phone. And everything transfers because the information is in the energy, not in the tangible, what we think the tangible is. It's not here. It's in there. So there was a time we thought, like, oh, my God, everything's lost. I'm like, no, the Akashic records are always storing. Even though someone had written something down on a piece of paper and it burnt in a fire back in 72, it's still there.
Still in the
It's
cloud.
still in the cloud. And someone will find it. It's crazy. Now we have a direct route to the cloud, and we're starting to understand this whole premise because everything that's on my phone is backed up. So if I lose it, I get a new one. It's as if the housing's different, right? It's a brand new phone, but the information that I had there is still there. It's still there.
And that's what this human experience is.
Yeah, so the thing that doesn't die is the information. So who gives a shit about the phone? Again, I care about the phone. Why? Because I retrieve my information through the phone. So I do care. I take care of it. I don't just throw it around. I'm not haphazard with it. I'm not haphazard with my body. But I also don't hold on to it. I allow whatever is supposed to happen to happen. But I also know in science now that when I get into congruent and repetition patterns of expansion, this thing lasts longer and feels better, opposed to interference patterns like sugar and whatever you call interference. I don't put stuff in people's heads. So you know what it feels like. So if I start to feel bad, I want to mitigate that right away. And what's one thing I do? One thing I could do is just the act of letting go of your breath. And I breathe in deep, and then I don't force it. I just let it drop. All of a sudden, bam, the first one, I felt good. We'll keep doing it. And the more I do it, my neurological system, my autonomic system, knows what it feels like to feel good all the time. And the second I step out of feeling good, and where before I had to get hung over before I heard, like I was so far damn gone. Where here I'm just stepping. It's like driving your car and you put your blinker on, but there's a car next to you and it starts beeping. Mm-hmm. I wasn't even close to hitting the car, but it let me know there was a car there. I'm like, that's awesome. Mm-hmm. So my system's getting so refined. So the feeling of aggravation or the feeling of discomfort in the body comes so quickly. Why? Because there's less pieces to pick up if I actually hit the car. Now, if I did hit the car and do that, I always get the car fixed, and a year later I forget about it. But I don't even have to go that far now. It's like, oh, there's a car. Mm-hmm. Made me alert. That's all.
That's a great analogy.
And that's what happens to our system the more we do this. And that's why we can then become like Navy SEALs of the planet in the spiritual world. All right? And so when we start doing these practices, everyone doesn't like shit happen. Like, I can't believe this happened to me. I'm like, all right, now that you know this is possible, it can happen, what can you do to mitigate the feeling of it? Yeah, do that. Don't wait for the next 1% to hit you. Mm-hmm. All right? Because, just do it. And all of a sudden when that thing happens, it's going to sting, It's going to sting. But even the breath work, I do every morning. I take the cold shower, especially this time of year. It's,
it's actually cold.
It's actually cold. Mm-hmm. And the cool thing about it is it's not a pleasurable thing for a 100-degree temperature body to go into water that's pretty damn cold. Mm-hmm. So that always elevates up. Pleasure, when you're seeking pleasure, that diminishes tenfold. It's weird. It just, after the first bite of a cookie, the second bite isn't as good. By the third cookie, you're like, why the fuck am I eating these things? Mm-hmm. There's nothing anymore. But at what point does a cold plunge ever get that way? Never. Never does. Mm-mm. So when I willingly step into discomfort, there's greater expansion in that there's no entropy there. Mm-hmm. That continues to grow. So why wouldn't you choose? And then after a while, I'm not even using the word discomfort. Why wouldn't you choose the unknown? Yeah. Because it is the unknown. Like every day I jump into the cold shower, I don't I don't know what's going to come out of my head. Okay, I'm gonna turn the water on. That's how I just go in the shower and I turn the water on, and I keep it at as cold as possible, and then I'm like, okay, I take a breath in, and boom, and all of a sudden, like a song will come out of my head, or like a phrase will come out of my head. My wife is like, what the fuck's going on? And then I'm like, okay, I'm gonna try to remain calm today, and I just remain calm, and okay, I'm calm, and then all of a sudden, I start. Singing or whatever. Mm. I'm a loud and noisy person, been told by my wife, but it's kind of like, it's not like dun, 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 mm-hmm. It's kind of like uplifting, I just need to know the lyrics of certain songs. My wife's like, that's not the lyrics. But she recognized the song though. I'm like, I'm making my own shit up, honey. I'm going into the unknown.
That's so funny. Yeah. Those are the right lyrics.
She's here, stop listening to me. I didn't know she was paying attention.
I'm just trying to take my mind up of this goddamn cold water.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is the fact that I was allowed to shows there's something going on there, mm-hmm. right? I'm not breathing. I'm not shivering. So the cold water is a great, how do you take your attention off cold water?
Great physical representation of walking into the unknown.
Yeah, when you do that, and then all of a sudden, okay, I could start to calm myself down, and I'm like, yeah, this is cold, but I'm relaxed. I'm training my neural pathway. I'm training my body to take on. Mm-hmm. Yeah, when that 1% thing hits me, it's gonna fucking hit me. I'm not gonna be like, I'm ready for it, mm-hmm. but I'll be able to mitigate it and turn that lead into gold. I know it because I've been there. I've had people close to me die suddenly. Mm-hmm. And over time, now it's like, okay, I'm better at this. Do I want that to happen? No. I'm like, will I feel sad? Absolutely yes. I'm like, how do I take that emotion of sadness and turn it into gold? I turn it into the fact that, and then throughout time, your perspective on that particular incident continuously changes. I'm not trying to make the same type of gold, trying to, oh my God, the lessons keep going. And all of a sudden,
And you develop a sense of appreciation for those moments.
big time appreciation.
Yeah.
The greatest lessons I've ever learned.
Exactly.
So, okay.
And you really mean it too.
Yeah.
You know?
So my greatest,
like it sucks, but like it also turns into like such an experience that you would have never wished it to happen any other way.
Yeah, and it allowed those pleasurable moments to be very pleasurable. But there was a point when I started seeking out pleasure, and that was agonizing because it never, ever, ever fulfilled me.
Well, that's where the 98% of the world's at. That's what we're all doing. We're running around. This is a consumer.
That's why porn is a big thing. It's a distraction. Drinking, alcohol, all these things they're pleasurable. Why? Because they're stimulating. They feel good, but they never last. All right. I'm not here to condemn those things. I'm here to say you like there's another route to this place that you want to get to, and in the beginning it's uncomfortable, but once you get used to it, I'm like, there is nothing greater. Like, there's nothing greater. I'm telling you, nothing greater than stepping into the unknown and knowing that your soul, your I am, will never, ever, ever die, which allows me to do it without tremendous fear. Now it's not fear. Now it's excitement, you know? And all of a sudden, because I understand what's actually happening in the world, intellectually, but not only intellectually, experientially. So the talk that me and Mike are doing here today is an intellectual talk, and I hope you take up arms and actually set yourself into the experience of dark. Like, talking about dark is one thing, but turning all the lights out is completely the other thing. Do you ever see this thing? As a video came up, I don't know if it's true or not. There's this room. It's a quiet room, but it's so damn quiet.
You can hear blood.
Yeah, but they'll
I think it's like Google or something.
According to this, I don't know. According to this video I was watching, they'll pay anyone $1 million if they make it in an hour.
Yeah, I've heard that.
So I thought it was interesting. I'm like, how?
I thought it was like 10 minutes. I thought if they could make it like
an hour they'll pay you. Yeah, some woman made it like 58 minutes or something like that, or 57 minutes. I'm like, fuck, 3 minutes.
I know.
You know,
do some breathing.
They should at least give it $500,000. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, right. But yeah, like you can hear your blood moving, right?
Yeah,
or something like that.
Yeah, so.
It's like at MIT or it's in California. It's like some like tech company created it.
Yeah, it's the quietest room in the town. I wonder if some like yogi went in there like, oh, I'm not going to be here all day.
Yeah, right? He does 2 hours.
So now I'm like curious to what that is like, because, you know, like when I do, like yesterday I went to do TM meditation with a group of people, and, you know, they don't play music or nothing. You seed yourself, you close your eyes and go into your mantra, and you can hear like little noise. You can hear cars in the background. But that's part of it. But to be completely no hearing whatsoever, you start to hear. You probably hear like, you know, be almost like Ebenezer and like the night he went to sleep and the three ghosts visit him. Like, you hear shit like, oh my God,
totally.
Like it probably gets really loud in your head, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I don't know if I'll have experience doing that, but why not? Like, to me, I'm like, if that was available to me, I would try it.
Oh, absolutely.
You know,
I would go.
I wouldn't get upset at myself if I only made it a minute. You know, I'm like, oh, that's crazy shit. But like, that's what I'm talking about. Like that's like, they wouldn't pay someone like, hey, if you could withstand the massage for an hour, I'll pay you $1 million. Like, yeah, I'll be a trillionaire by now.
Sounds
if that was
great.
the case. Yeah, so I got that. But it's like going into a quiet room, $1 million. Like, why? Because you're going to discover yourself. You're going to discover your limitations in your belief structure. And this is the only way I can lift them. Yeah. It's by heading into that unknown. And I start to, like, why do I believe this? Where did this belief come from? Is it serving me? No, it's not. Why am I holding on to it? Fuck if I know. Okay, if you don't know, then let it go. But when you let go of something, you don't get rid of it. That's the brilliant. That's the way you can take fear out of it. You don't get rid of it. You put it aside. It's always there. Mm-hmm. I'm like, okay, if it's always there, I don't need to carry it with me? No, you don't. It's always there whenever you want it. But at some point, like all the food in your refrigerator is there. But can you imagine it's like you have to eat everything every day? Or, you know, I'm like, whoa, this is a lot of work. Holy shit. No. It's there when you want it. It's there when you need it. Then all of a sudden you go in the refrigerator after 3 weeks, you hadn't eaten a certain type of food. Get rid of it. Don't ever, you know. Mm-hmm. But now, no, it's at the grocery store. It's further away from your experience, but it's there. It will never
exists.
disappear. I don't need anything to disappear. I just focus on the experience and what's in front of me. And then throughout the years, the food that enters into my refrigerator naturally, organically changes.
Yeah.
And hopefully it is organic, But the experience has changed. I don't say, this is who I am. I'm a meat eater. I'm this and that. I'm like, yeah, at this particular moment, I'm eating a diet that's roughly around that. But will my future remain? I don't know. I'm not trying to hold on to that, But once I eat something, whether it's a banana or a chicken, it's no longer a chicken. It's no longer a banana. It's who I am.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So after it's gone, it's part of me. The body doesn't know it was a banana or a chicken. After that moment in time. The body will respond different than to a banana or a chicken, right? One has sugar in it, one doesn't. It's protein.
Mm-hmm.
But once it's into the body, the chicken is now Frank and the banana is now Frank.
Mm-hmm.
And who is Frank?
And then that's where we're at with that level of awareness.
That's
which
it.
is, Frank is this identity, this character I've created, a series of stories, a series of mind patterns. So I have the ability to get in there, and Frank can be anything Frank wants to be.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
Yeah, it is. And that's so when
you're no longer limited to this being.
Yeah, so I'm not trying to get rid of the ego. I'm just understanding what the ego is there for. Without the ego, there is no physical outward experience.
Mm-hmm.
But when the inner is driving the vehicle, the ego could be childlike and have fun just looking out the window. I'm like, oh, check that out. Look at that. Mm-hmm. But when the ego is driving the car, you're only going to drive the block in which you know. Mm-hmm. And then you're going to get into road rage.
And that's the ego's job, to keep you comfortable, keep you safe.
Yeah, but if you put the ego in the back seat, the ego then becomes like, wow, check that out. Because the I am is driving you into unknown, uncharted territories. But guess what? The I know, it's not unknown to the I am. Mm-hmm. It's not.
It knows.
That's where the trust, or what we call faith, in our higher self will lead us, through the valleys of the desert into the promised land. Mm-hmm. You just have to have faith and trust it. And in order to do that, you already have to know what the promised land feels like. And even though you're in the desert, you could still feel the promised land. That's why the idea, I look at it this way, like they said, Moses never made it to the promised land. Again, this is just my perspective. He never left the promised land. He was bringing people that never experienced the promised land through the desert. To him, the promised land was already in him. Mm-hmm. All right. But that's my perspective on how I look at that.
I like that.
Yeah.
So we got a clip that we wanted to share with you guys today. We'll put this up right here. This is going to be actually David Hawkins. We've covered him several times on this show, and his work is great. He's the writer and author of Power versus Force. A lot of great information from Mr. Hawkins.
Yeah, and this goes along with what we're talking about.
In spirituality, it's perceived as some kind of a direction or a goal, you see. To become enlightened, let's say, is a lofty goal. To become Christ-like, to become perfect, to become loving, to become forgiving. And how does one make this kind of progress, one says? How do you make the progress? How do you overcome the obstacles? And it's by constant surrendering. Constant letting go. So yesterday we didn't talk about surrendering or letting go, which becomes an automatic way of life. The willingness to constantly trust the presence of divinity to handle all things. And somebody says it's 9 o'clock and they're not here yet. You say, well, so if we're late, we're late. And then they show up. 2 minutes after 9. So the constant letting go, and somebody said they didn't know what that meant, to let go. They said, how do you surrender? How do you let a thing go? I couldn't figure out an answer. So I let go trying to figure it out. I don't know what to tell somebody who says, I don't know how to drop a hanky on the floor. I said, I don't know. How do you let go? One constantly lets go resisting. wanting to change things. So experience is very much like music. Music, experience arises like a note of music. The minute you hear a note, it's already passing away. The instant you've heard it, it's already dissolving. So every single moment is dissolving as it arises. So I look at it like a wave, like the moment, what we would call a moment or an instant, an experience. It arises, and the minute it begins to arise, it is already fading away, just as the end of this lecture is already happening. But we have to hurry up to the end of it, so we will hurry to the end of it. The moment is arising, and if we let go resisting it, we stop experiencing it, and the experience of time disappears. You let go resisting, the experience of time disappears. You live in timelessness. In timelessness, all events cease, all changes, all causality, all events, all moments disappear, because those are all concepts. The willingness to surrender, resisting, then, is as the moment arises, we let it go, and now we're at the peak. And if you ride the crest of the moment, without resisting it, you can literally go through surgery without anesthesia. And I've done it several times.
Wow.
Great clip.
Yeah, I didn't listen to the whole clip. I just heard the beginning of it. I'm like, this sounds like it'll be good.
Even better.
Oop.
He does a great job, of describing that letting go feeling, which is so freeing to do. Like, I remember the first time reading Hawkins' work and, starting to listen to him, and the way he describes it in such like a comfortable way. And it's funny too, and he's got some humor behind it. And it's like, you can feel, what he's saying. And you understand where he's coming from. It's not like he's just blowing smoke up your ass like when you're listening to a normal lecture, or like you're just saying that because it sounds good. No, he means it.
Yeah, and that's a very interesting point, because there's a multitude of different people I listen to that are talking about the same message. But the people that actually are talking about it intellectually and then are actually living it, they have a different demeanor in the delivery of their information. It's a lot calmer, tends to be funnier. They're not like, this is how you have to do it. Yeah. And I noticed when I was rigid talking about this stuff, it's because I was only intellectually, there was less experiential aspects of it. Like, I would read a book, I'm like, yeah, this would be fucking great if this actually worked, But then I read the book and I wanted my ego to inflate, so I would spew this out. Mm-hmm. I'm like, well, if you only did this, your life would be better. And I'm yelling at the person, telling him that. So myself wasn't really.
But that's what we've been taught, like how things work. Like, we have all these professors out there on their high horse, who have never accomplished anything, never built anything. They just checked a lot of boxes up in school, and they're at this stage, and that's all they have is to yell now.
Yeah, and most people, like, if not.
That's fallen away, by the way.
Everyone's aware of that.
Yeah, welcome to the age of Aquarius. All that shit's breaking down now.
Yeah, people do not like the elitist. Mm-hmm. They don't.
And we're tearing it down right now.
I'm smarter than you. I'm like,
no, you're not.
Based off of what?
I know. And people are waking up to that and going, no.
The thing is, but once you have these experiences within the field of love, so when he talks about resistance then is a feeling in the body that could be labeled as fear. So when you don't have resistance, you're fully embraced in love, to the adequate aspect in which the human body really likes to play in. But it doesn't mean you avoid the dark. It just, letting go is like, let's see what happens. Mm-hmm. That's the brilliance. So what, they're late. Mm-hmm. Who cares? But they're never late. They're just not pinpointed on a time, because time becomes an illusion after a while.
Yep.
Right? I think about before they invented the clock or whatever. Like, people just ran into each other. Yeah. Hey, I was just thinking about you.
Literally.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden it's like, hey, meet me here at 9:00. And all of a sudden,
You just meet in the morning, the afternoon, or the evening.
Yeah, but like the setting to meet him, like I hope they show up on time. I hope I'm not late. All of a sudden, creates this anxiety all around it, and or you show up late and you realize they showed up late, and you're like, oh, thank God. Like it's just funny. It all is due to time, right? Rather, because if we trust in timing, we'll never actually tell someone to meet me here. Like, what do you mean? You'll meet when you need to meet, but when you're forcing a meeting, then people get there like, why are we here? Because we're meeting. We're going to talk about this discussion. Like a couple of times I've been involved in meetings, but not like at a corporate level where people have board meetings. I'm like, does anything really ever get done? And people are like, to tell you the truth, not really. It just, no. Things get done on the individual level that people just do, but the meeting tends to like just, you're voicing your opinion out there, and now you feel compelled to actually say something. Because I'm here. You have anything to say? Yeah, I got something to say. And you just start, okay, you had a good point there. I mean, what the fuck are you talking about here?
And they talk about this now, how meetings have done this. Elon Musk is a big, meeting guy. He's like, this is what these are.
Yeah, the universe is already...
It makes us an illusion that we're doing something.
Yes, we need...
So that something's being accomplished.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's kind of funny.
We're watching in real time a lot of cool shit going on, like in this culture. In the timing, like we're watching old paradigms break away.
Yeah, and
this is a very fascinating time to be alive.
And we all knew they didn't work, but we had to play in them a number of times to realize it doesn't work. I'm like, well, that doesn't work. Well, now you know that you can let go of it. And I think that's what allowing is, like letting go. So that's where the breath comes in. Like, how do you let go? Like you said, how do you drop a handkerchief? Like, well, you don't. The gravity does it. The work is done. So when you're in the state of love, it's effortless. And then when you're dancing in the state of love, dancing is effortless. You'll never get tired. But when you're forced to dance, it's a struggle. You can barely get through a song. So dancing for a period of time, so to speak, it's how I'm feeling when I'm in that place. Am I in a higher state of love, or an interference pattern's coming that's taking up all my energy, and I'm dancing very awkwardly and look like I'm putting a lot of effort in? But if I just look at somebody, I'm like, man, they've been writing on the computer for 10 hours, putting a lot of work in there. Now, I don't know until I actually see them, like, was it effort or did they get lost? To them, 10 hours was like 10 minutes. And then someone could be writing for an hour and be like, oh my God, it's only been 15 minutes. It's the energy field in which they were battling in the system, the interference pattern, which generates into what we call fear, that was sucking up all their energy in their physical body, that was creating that. That's why people are like, oh, we shouldn't be working that much. I'm like, well, why are we working? Like, why aren't we loving what we're doing? And people buy into this. It's like, so when you look at somebody doing something, not like what they're doing, find out how did they get into that state? And they just slipped into it. So breathing, like when I breathe in, it's effort, it's work, it's discomfort. No work doing that, baby. When I do the breath work, I drop it out. So the discomfort of choosing to breathe in gives me that immense satisfaction of breathing out. But I can't just do this all day.
It's a great illustration too of just how manifestation works.
Yeah, so when you feel like you can't let go of something, you can't let go of what an employee did to you, or what a coworker, what your wife did, what your husband did, take a deep breath in. Oh, it feels better. Keep doing it until you want to hug your wife, not strangle her. And then when you do that, all of a sudden, like, wow, this is so much easier. And all of a sudden, what she was saying was trying to help you in your journey, because that's what we do for loved ones. But you took it as she was complaining or what have you.
Hindering. Yep.
Yeah, hindering. So you generated that belief that don't tell me what to do. And all of a sudden you're augmenting your breathing and you get, and then for you. When you get to that level, whatever your wife or any person is still saying, it translates different in your system. So it's not what she's saying, it's how you're, what filter am I putting in as this information is coming in. So there is no dark place on the planet now. There isn't a bad thing to say. There's nothing to get offended over. That's fucking heaven. Mm-hmm. Not avoiding, like, let's not talk.
Yeah,
like,
right.
How do we not fight? Well, if we don't talk, we won't fight.
Can't
but
fight.
then someone's going to get like, well, you never talk to me anymore. I'm like, so we
Trying
don't
to
fight.
avoid the fight.
But now the fight, yeah, you can't. Can't avoid a fight.
It's funny how that works.
Yeah. So, and when you actually, put yourself out there, like when you start getting frustrated, breathe in and breathe out. I feel a little better. Well, keep doing it till that feeling, keep doing it till the guitar strings are tuned. Okay, that's good. Now, what happens a lot of times, my guitar is really out of tune. I'll tune it, and I go all the way from the high E to low E. Now I have to go back and check the high E, make sure that wasn't pulled out from the strings being pulled. And sometimes it was, so I have to readjust it. But then it's like, okay, now here it's good. Now when I'm playing it, okay, before it even gets out of tune, now I play it to where I don't really knock it out of tune as much. But again, it's a physical item, so it's always fading. You can't, when it gets colder out, it tightens up. You have to change things. But I don't care. I enjoy tuning my guitar now. It's not like a hindrance. Fuck that guitar. It keeps going out of tune.
Exactly. And that's what we're experiencing.
Yeah. So
day to day, tuning our own guitars.
That's it. And we get better at tuning guitar. We actually we love tuning the guitar and then you ever see a person tune the guitar while they're actually playing a song? Like that's crazy.
Absolutely.
They didn't even stop. They're just tuning it. I think it was a BB King. There's a video of him. He was, I forgot what song it was, but he broke a guitar string. And it was right in the middle where he wasn't playing and he was just singing. He literally, instead of giving his guitar and someone giving another one, he changed the string.
Oh, my God.
He's sitting there, he's singing, doing this, and still singing. And then right as he got it all done, tuned it up, and then he had to go play again. I'm like, that was the craziest thing I've ever seen.
That's so badass.
He was at the point where someone could have handed him a new guitar. He's like, no, just give me a goddamn string.
Yeah.
I'll show you. He's in the audience singing, Oh, it was just amazing. But that's a talent we recognize, and that's who we want to be.
Well, speaking of that reminds me of Jimi Hendrix. He was known, if he hit a wrong note, he would bend the note into the correct note.
Yes. Yeah.
I love that.
He was a master.
It's like, hey, I missed this, but I'm going to bend this pitch into the correct note.
Yeah, because he always took what was and made it into something far more expansive that no one can see. Like, we've talked about this before on the show, but using this as an example, but when the Beatles came out with Sgt. Pepper, I believe the story goes a week later, Jimi Hendrix was playing at some club in London, I believe it was in London, and the Beatles were showing up. A lot of musicians were there, and it was like not like a huge or like an amphitheater type of thing. It was just a club that I don't know how many people fit in it, but nonetheless, he shows up and he tells his two members, because they had a bass player and a drummer. I should know their names, but they were the Experience, right? Jimi Hendrix Experience. And he's like, okay. He's like, we're gonna play Sgt. Pepper, and I think it was like the bass player. He's like, are you kidding me? Like, the album just came out last week, and I'm like, it's the Beatles. Like, yeah. And like, did you know the Beatles in the audience? Like, yeah. He's like, we better not mess it up. And he goes out there and plays it.
Oh, yeah.
And all he did is give them instruction, and the tempo, whenever. He went out there, and Paul McCartney and the rest of the Beatles like, what the fuck?
That's awesome.
He took Sgt. Pepper. Now, don't get me wrong, the Sgt. Pepper, Beatles version is really good.
Of course.
But Jimi Hendrix is like, wow, you can do that? And he took I wouldn't say it was better, but he took something and just made it look completely different. And, as far as the saying goes, you're like, oh my God, he's destroying the song. But the Beatles, like, fuck it. I'm like, he obviously thinks the song is that great where he's going to mimic it again or redo it, but make it his own. And he did, and they're like, wow, that is crazy.
See, that's cool.
And that's what we do in life. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We're not trying to in the physical realm. But how can I take this thing and change my perspective on it to where it works for me? All right. Now the wheel works for me, not against me. But I don't have to invent the wheel or anything. But I could tap into this unknown place. So he listened to the song Sgt. Pepper, but then when he filtered it, it was a different filter. It came through and played it different on his guitar.
See, that's cool.
And that's what we're here to do. We're not here to direct replicate, because there's no joy in that. We're here to go into the unknown. And you're not the first human being to ever do this, by the way. Mm-hmm. So get over that. But what comes out of it is amazing. And then as time goes on, you're going to see less and less people asking for advice. Other than if someone's like, do you have any advice for me? I'm like, yeah, listen to your own advice.
Go within.
Go within.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all I can tell you. Because we know the outside world is going to sell you a pile of shit.
Yep.
They're going to lie to you all day long.
It's been happening for decades and decades and decades.
Fake news, baby. Mm-hmm. Who do I... All this news, I don't know what's made up or not. And I'm like, I think it's God's way of saying go within. Because when you go within, the information that you need is readily available for you to enact whatever it is you're going to act. It doesn't mean my information negates Mike's. You know, my path may be a little different than Mike, but you could see we're parallel in a lot of areas. But I tap into this field of energy, and then I see the correlation between, like, you know, David Hawkins and Mike and I and talk about this, but it's not the same. But we're on the same parallel movement going on. I'm like, wow, we're in a band now. We're playing together. Exactly. We're not like mine's better than yours. It's not like the battle. You ever hear the battle of bands? Of course, it's ridiculous. Like it'd be great if they really had a battle while they're playing guitar. They're throwing shit at each other, like
wielding.
Exactly, that's a battle. But why would you battle music? But anyway, I get the whole concept behind it. But so we're not here to fight with each other. We're here to add nuances into it. And oh my God, I never looked that way.
Make it your own.
Make it your own. Yeah.
And that's what's exciting, because you're right. It's not copying. It's not this. It's not. And we've lived where we have been taught that we're in a world where we're trying to replicate, good little, quote unquote free thinkers, where this is what's right, this is what's wrong, this is how you're told to think. You can take the ideology, the culture that we've been taught here in America, and you could show this to a tribe in Africa, and they would be blown away. What are you doing? What are you brainwashing your children?
It'd be foreign to them, and they might be like, "Well, let me try that."
Yeah, exactly. Or vice versa.
What's McDonald's hamburger?
We're not here to knock everything, but it's also here to say, like, hey, everything we've been taught, everything we've been told, it doesn't mean necessarily that it's the truth.
No, and you'll know what's true for you, and what's not through the interference pattern the body picks up. In other words, if you start feeling nervous, whatever you're thinking isn't true. Well, what's happening when I'm nervous? My breathing's off, my heart rate's up, and all this stuff. So, okay, how do I augment that? Start breathing. When I breathe, it can change my heart rate, it can change my nervous system, and all of a sudden now my nervous system's calm. I look at that thought that came in, I'm like, it's nonsense the way I looked at the thought. Just let it go on by and or the situation came up. Okay, situation happened. Someone hit my car. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, I go into saying, okay, stop breathing. All right? It happened. So what? Get to that place where you can mitigate it quickly, Mm-hmm. And so by breathing, you could get the body used to being calm, kind of like, a Navy SEAL has to remain calm, but they're not going into what we deem to be calm situations. Mm-hmm. They're not like security guards where, like, hopefully nothing happens today. Mm-hmm. When they're going in, something's happening today. Something's definitely happening. And so we but like when you sit there in this time, and why not train all the time? And then all of a sudden your training becomes the most beautiful experience you ever had. Mm-hmm. It really does. And don't train for a later time, by the way. Train for the process in which you're in.
Right now.
Right now. It's just brilliant. And then when that 1% thing happens, all right, I'm good. I'm still alive. Now I could separate a little bit my I am from my character, just like a great actor, when the director says cut, they realize they can go back to being whoever they were, not the character, but pick the character up anytime they want. So I'm not fear of the character, but I'm not the character. I'm the one who's playing the character. I'm like, now life becomes exciting and fun. Let's see what the character can do in this situation. Oh, that character doesn't like that situation. I'm like, well, too bad.
We're heading into
Too
this
bad.
one
Let's
full
do it.
steam ahead today.
Son of a bitch. Why do you think I got married?
Just right. Just on the other side of this is greatness. That's what I always remind myself.
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, the pendulum's gonna swing. Just on the other side of this is something I couldn't even fathom.
That's your practice. It doesn't matter where you practice. Wherever you are in your life, you practice. Every situation, every moment is the two dimensions. And that's the end of fear comes with that. Fear being a normal human condition for most people, sometimes buried under something else. Fear in its many manifestations, nervousness, tension, anxiety, anger comes out of fear. Stress really is a form of fear. Many forms of fear, quite normal. Why? That's all you know. That's fear. You don't know that. Once you know that also, it's the end of fear. Because there nothing can be destroyed. That's why the Course in Miracles starts, which is all you need to know, the prologue, the first, before it all starts. It says this course can be summarized in the following words. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. Nothing real can be threatened, and that is here, because nothing unreal ultimately exists in the world of form. The form is ultimately not real in itself. Nothing unreal exists. Herein, which means knowing that, lies the peace of God. God, of course, is the formless, timeless, eternal, unmanifested, that is both within and beyond the world.
That was powerful.
I like how calm he is.
That was a great
Yeah.
clip. I'm glad you chose that
Yeah.
one because that really, really fit well with what we were talking about for today's episode.
And I like how he touched on that about like the different. So, like fear is like, okay, what is fear? Fear is a very weird thing to say, but we know what anxiety feels like. We know what anger feels like. Mm-hmm. So fear is expressed through anger, anxiety, all these unwanted feelings that disrupt the pattern of our nervous system, and it starts interfering with it. So by going into how do I then, through will, start regulating that system, all of a sudden fear starts to dissipate. And then over time, you don't even have to necessarily do the practice of breathing, because you'll always be in, like you said, structure really in the physical world is always fleeting, but life is always moving and growing. So everything is keep moving and unfolding and moving and unfolding. So you can't hold on to it. Don't try to grab the flower, just observe the flower. Observe what's happening. And then dance with it. That's where the interaction of life comes in.
Well, it's cool too. He explained it as 2 dimensions, and it's like, okay, well, which one do we want to experience?
Yeah.
This dimension of fear or this dimension of love?
Yeah.
And when you have when you pose a simple question like that to oneself, that kind of is a great way for you to jump into it now with the understanding level of awareness, knowing, hey, just on the other side of this is greatness.
Yeah. And when you go in there and learn to mitigate how you feel with anxiety and stuff like that, all of a sudden you get this sense of deeper peace, and I don't want to use the word control, but you're allowing. Yeah, allowing is like a better
knowing.
Word. It's allowing. It's like I'm knowing, and because if I know, I can allow, right? And all of a sudden, when you start to experience that, you just want more of it, and then watch how life unfolds. It's brilliant. what a brilliant life, what a brilliant story you tell yourself.
Things that you never thought could work its way out in a certain way, work its way out. And I know this through personal experience of truly letting go and getting into situations where I'm like, I have no idea how this can be good for me or whatever. And I let go of it, and it comes out. I'm like, holy shit!
Yeah, because it was just traveling through your experience. I'm like, well, that was interesting, you know, and you know, I think when we head into the unknown, we're always alert, you know, but people, if you head into the unknown strapped with fear and anxiety, interference patterns, you're not alert. You're dysfunctional.
Yeah.
Yeah. It starts to break down. You're not at this heightened place where like, oh, bring it on. Like, let's see what you got. And it's easier than we think to start to control our internal guidance system, or we don't control the internal guidance system. It's already working. But when we control our nervous system, like in other words, when I control the radio dial on my radio, I can easily get the song I want. I know what station to tune it to.
Kind of like Eckhart said here, you know, that's the space of God.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And so once I tune into that, all the information that comes to me is pure. But if I'm having an interference pattern, I can't hear the information. It's not that it wasn't readily available, but I couldn't hear the song because I was out of reach of the bandwidth of the radio station come through. Mm-hmm. So, okay, how do I mitigate that? How do I change the frequency? How do I do that? One way is breath work, meditation. You know, there's a multitude of things. But when breath is always with you, so why not just use that as your staple understanding of how do I tune that in there to where I can actually hear the song. Now I can hear the song. But before I was like, hear a static. Mm-hmm. Like, you can have the greatest song in the world, but there's static there. You don't hear the song. Mm-hmm. There's resistance there.
And that's where we're at when we're, you know, drinking, using drugs, using sex, using all these things to mitigate these feelings. We're just getting static. It's just, we know it's not the answer. We know it's just temporary. We feel like shit the following day or after it's completed.
Yeah, the static is even worse.
And that's how you know. And you're just like, you're like, it's like this temporary, you know, that relief, but you know it's not the answer. Everyone inherently knows it's not the answer.
Yeah, it's almost like listening to a song that you really like and there's a little bit of static, and all you do is turn up the volume.
Yeah.
Like, all right.
Try to get a little bit louder.
I can hear the lyrics now, but it's still, but then when the song's over, I have a headache. Because that, you know, where it's like, okay, I can listen to the song at a different decibel because it was fine-tuned perfectly to where there was no interference and I could just absorb and experience the song.
So we inherently know that there's something more or something, you know, better out there when we're going through this. I remember that on my journey. Well, yeah. I remember, like, I knew there was something more.
Like, yeah, I don't care if you never heard a song the first time in your life, you'll know if it's pure in its essence coming through the speaker or if it's interfered with. Mm-hmm. Like, if you hear static and then all of a sudden someone fine-tunes it and the song just, you can hear a pin drop. Mm-hmm. That's what we want. But it's not what song it was. It was the ability to be in a certain frequency that allows all the information to come through clear and concise. Mm-hmm. So that's why we get into these realms of breathing. We open up and all of a sudden information that's relative to my life will come to me in the moment in which I need it. I don't have to study it anymore. Mm-hmm. I don't. All of a sudden a thought comes in. I'm like, let me act on it. If I start thinking about it, like, oh, I know if I should do this, I don't have time. I'm like, well, the universe wouldn't offer it up to me if I didn't have time. So, okay, but if I feel I don't have time, just let it go. Once you start thinking about it, you're going to start creating interference in your head. And all of a sudden now you're frustrated, you get home and start yelling at your kids. Mm-hmm. You know, like, what happened to Daddy? You know, Daddy had a long day. It was all in his head.
That's exactly it. That's where we spend all of our long days.
Yeah, exactly. It's true.
And then you get to that self-realization and you go,
oh my God, it's a peaceful day.
I can let go of this.
Yeah. Daddy, I broke the windshield.
That's what we're striving for, you know?
No big deal, son. We can fix that.
We'll take care of it.
We'll take care of it.
But I think a lot of us can relate to this idea of fear and love, especially as we're going through, we're now starting winter. This is a big transition time, part of that cycle. The old breaking down, then the start of that fresh, spring, time of year. Astrologically speaking, we're stepping into a very interesting time now, entering the age of Aquarius. We're seeing, a lot of paradigms, breaking down. We're seeing a lot of people coming out. We're seeing it with, the discussions about our food, the discussions about political power, discussions about money, discussions about distribution of wealth, our healthcare, our education. These are all coming to the forefront for a reason.
Yep, and
this is an exciting time to be alive.
Yeah, metaphorically, winter is a time where the going within is the strength of which precedes spring. Mm-hmm. In other words, it's where the trees that are going to make it really dig in and nourish themselves. That's what winter's about. It's going within, and then we go within. In spring, we bloom out, and so I didn't even
perfect time for us to discuss this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But again, I didn't plan this. The universe did.
That's exactly it. We show up. We're the conduit. We allow it to come through.
As long as I get out of my head, I can speak a good talk. But if I don't, even the listeners will recognize it.
It bottles up.
Yeah, I'm like, damn. Got my head. I got my ego involved.
That's exactly it. When you're letting go and you're just in flow. Oh man, you can feel it.
Yeah, it feels really good. And there's no other place I would want to be within that flow. And then it's okay when this ends, me and Mike go off into different ways. I then take that with me.
Me too.
I don't be like, oh, I wish I was still doing that.
I take it into the week with me.
Yeah, take it wherever. So instead, it's like get an RV. Wherever you go, there's your home.
Exactly.
And that's kind of where it is. So wherever you are, wherever you go, there you are. Now, it always utilized to be in a preference or a saying of negativity, like I'm miserable. I'm going to go. If I go to Hawaii, I won't be miserable. And someone says, "Well, wherever you go, there you are." Mm-hmm. Well, get into a good state. Wherever you go, there you are. It doesn't matter where you go. It doesn't matter how dark of a room you go into. Mm-hmm. You're okay because you are the light. So wherever you go, there isn't any darkness. It's just because you put your hand over the flashlight doesn't mean the light isn't working, or because you close your eyes doesn't mean you're blind. I'm like, why you close your eyes and why you covering it? So everywhere I go, the light is shining, but I don't need to know if the light is over there. I'm like, I'm here. I'm here right now. That's all the light needs to be. When I get there, my light will appear and things will happen.
I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, anyone out there have any questions or want to expand upon their ideas about this? We always like to hear about that too. Hear your viewpoint and perspective on this stuff, because me and Mike are sharing ours. Again, any questions or comments? perspectiveshift2020@gmail.com.
Yeah.
And get a hold of us.
We love hearing from you guys.
Yeah.
Reach out to us. You can reach us by email. You can send us a direct message online. We're on all social media platforms. If you're listening to us on Spotify, thank you so much. At the end of the day, guys, we're going through the same thing, this same crazy experience that we all call reality with you. And it's fun getting to share our perspective here on Perspective Shift. We love hearing your perspective. And at the end of the day, I think the biggest takeaway we all can have is that we have the ability to change our perspective. That there's not only one way of looking at something. There is no right. There is no wrong. It's thinking that makes it so. So get out there. Go do something that scares you this week.
Yeah, but do it as you're a kid. Like it's fun, like exciting, not nervousness.
Yeah, don't go jump off of a building.
No, unless you're excited, But I'm saying there's a difference. So before you go to do something, put a different filter in between that energy that is anxiety, and we put a different filter, then it transfers into excitement. Then take action.
Yeah.
So know what state you're in. All right. Again, what state you're in will precede what's going to happen. You know what I'm saying?
Continue.
It's kind of like that analogy I use where if you were, in the state of Arizona, if you had a gun in your glove box, it's not a problem because guns are legal here. But now, if you were in California, had a gun in your glove box, and a police officer pulled you over, yeah, it's gonna be a problem. So it's the state that's the situation, not the circumstance around it. So check your state. Notice how you feel. Do not jump off that cliff unless it's excitement. If it's anxiety, it's going to be the end of that experience.
That's exactly it. Thanks so much for tuning in, guys. We will see you next week.
All right. Much love and peace out.
Thanks, guys.